Even before the capsule of Ferrus Manus tore screaming through the Karashi pinnacle, Medusa was a realm at war with itself. Its crust forever shifted and buckled under relentless tectonic violence, mountains rising only to be ground down again beneath storms of black sand and electro-charged ash. No true sun ruled its skies, only a perpetual gloom broken by erratic lightning and the sick glow of atmospheric discharge. The land knew no mercy, only endurance. Beneath the tundra and dust lay the bones of forgotten ages, cyclopean ruins, sealed vaults, and half-buried constructs whose makers are known only through fractured legend and corrupted data. Above it all hung the Telstarax, a colossal ring station encircling Medusa, forged in the dark age of technology and already ancient by the time of Ferrus Manus. Its original purpose remains unknown. Some believe it once served to harvest and translocate Medusa's mineral wealth into the void. Others insist that function was merely incidental. By the Primarch's arrival, much of the Telstarax had already fallen, its shattered mass scarring the planet below, embedding itself into Medusa's fate like shrapnel in flesh. Nothing native to the planet is ornamental, passive, or wasteful. Every living thing is adapted to cold, toxin, abrasion, and starvation. Evolution on Medusa does not favor beauty or speed alone. It favors persistence. Creatures are squat, armored, and viciously territorial. Their flesh often laced with mineral deposits, their bones dense as plasteel. Many exhibit partial lithification, iron-rich blood, or natural electroreceptive organs attuned to the planet's constant atmospheric discharge. Predators such as rock salamanders, razor-scaled tunnel beasts, and storm-warped mountain yak do not hunt for sport. They attack because hesitation means death. Even herbivores are aggressive, bitter-fleshed things that gnaw lichen and mineral growths from stone, their teeth ever growing to counter constant erosion. Nothing on Medusa is truly harmless. Even the smallest life form is difficult to kill and harder still to consume. Life on Medusa is not abundant, it is selective. Clans roam the wastelands aboard vast land crawlers. These crawlers are not mere vehicles, they are cities of grinding iron and sacred machinery. Manufactorums, refineries, ore crushers and void-shielded hab blocks fused into kilometer-long behemoths that crawl across tectonically unstable plains. To live upon one is to live inside a machine's ribcage. These iron caravans grind slowly across tundra, ash desert and glacier-scoured valleys, harvesting ore, trading with other clans, and abandoning any ground that grows too dangerous to hold. Permanence is a lie Medusa punishes. The planet is littered with relics of the dark age of technology, fractured vaults, buried vault engines, and half-sleeping war constructs older than memory. The Telstarax above, broken yet watchful, is only the most visible remnant. Beneath the ash lie engines whose purposes are long forgotten and whose awakening would be catastrophic. Survival demands understanding. Thus, even the humblest clan child learns the basics of maintenance before he learns to hunt. Cogitator rites, coolant prayers, ignition litanies, these are recited with the same gravity as ancestral oaths. Every Medusan knows enough to strip and rebuild industrial assemblies. Every clan maintains its own forge masters, tech adepts, and machine tenders. A crawler neglected is a clan condemned. Almost all Medusans possess some familiarity with lingua technis, technolingua, the machine cant of binary bursts and encoded static. It is not spoken fluently as a tech priest of Mars would wield it, but it is understood. Clanspeople use vox clicks, subsonic emitters, and crude cranial augmetics to exchange simple machine phrases, status confirmations, warning pings, blessing codes. Even without formal implants, many can interpret the pulses of diagnostic runes and binary chant as instinctively as another world's farmer reads the weather. Machines are not worshipped as gods in the Martian sense, but neither are they treated as mere tools. They are partners in endurance. To anger a machine through neglect is to invite death. To appease it through ritual maintenance is simple prudence. Many clans believe that every engine possesses a temperament. Some are patient, some are spiteful, some hunger for input, some resist command unless properly appeased. Medusans are born into hardship and raised without indulgence. Strength is expected, weakness is not tolerated. Those who can no longer contribute are expected to meet their end with dignity, whether through ritual exposure, voluntary exile, or one final journey into the wastes. This is not savagery to them. It is survival ethics, refined over millennia. Children are taught weapons early. Pain is familiar. Death is accepted. Emotional restraint is prized above all else. Joy exists, but it is quiet and fleeting. Grief is not displayed, it is carried. When clans meet, they trade, feud, and kill for scraps. Old grudges are remembered for generations. Alliances are temporary. Only endurance is constant. Existence must be earned daily. From these people come the aspirants. When a youth sets out on the trials, the long walk into the dead places toward ruins older than memory, there are no tears. The family already understands the truth. Their child will either evolve to something more than human or not return at all. Either way, they will never see them again. Medusa does not mourn them, it measures them. When the Iron Hands recruit from the clans, they do not begin with ignorance. Their aspirants already understand that flesh fails and iron persists. Medusa grants no victories, only continued existence. Survival is the only concession. Veteran Sergeant Braxius, Clan Dorvok. Chapter 1. Rite of Tempering. The chamber of Clan Vergan was carved from black ironstone and veined with cables older than many imperial worlds. Cold lumen strips burned in narrow recesses along the walls, casting hard light over ranks of mounted trophies. Here, nothing was subtle. Helmets split by chain-blade teeth, Xenos skulls bored and cored for data extraction. Banners taken from broken war hosts, their sigils seared and overmarked with the cog and hand of Medusa. Plates of alien chitin riveted beside fractured ceramite from traitor legions long consigned to ash. 10,000 years of war hung in ordered severity along the iron walls. Clan Vergan did not hoard glory for vanity. They archived it. Each relic was tagged with runic script and Bin Harik cant. Date, theater, casualty ratio, outcome, failure when relevant. The clan's great crawler fortress bore the greater mass of such spoils as it ground across Medusa's wastelands. Ervok Medran knelt upon bare metal. His armor had been stripped to its base plating, his weapons removed. Even the sigils of campaign and honor had been unfastened. Only the iron of his augmetics remained, for those could not be taken. Above him loomed ancient Godolkin. The dreadnought sarcophagus was scarred by centuries of war, its surface etched with kill runes and clan markings burned deep into ceramite. Incense drifted around the ancient war machine in slow coils, clinging to the massive frame like memory refusing to disperse. When Godolkin spoke, the sound was not loud, but it was absolute. Sargeant Ervok Medran of Clan Vergan. The words vibrated through the chamber floor. You stand before this council having executed Magos Dominus Hestaval 9 of the Adeptus Mechanicus during a joint reclamation operation. The ancient paused for a moment. You do not deny this. Ervok's voice was steady. I do not. You have submitted no justification. I have not. Silence followed. It was not uncomfortable. It was evaluative. The council did not ask what had occurred within the Vault complex on that distant world. They did not inquire about casualty ratios, tactical disputes, or the precise moment the bolt round had left Ervok's weapon. The Iron Hands were not ignorant. They simply did not require the telling. Ancient Godolkin's optic lenses dimmed fractionally, ancient processors considering more than words. The alliance with Mars is iron, the dreadnought intoned. It must not fracture. I understand. You have preserved that alliance. I have. Another silence, longer this time. The cost, Godolkin continued. A low thrum pulsed through the dreadnought's chassis, an echo of something older than memory. In the age of our Primarch, when iron faltered, it was not cast aside. It was reheated, hammered, refined. The council's gaze remained fixed upon the kneeling warrior. Clan Vergan does not exile its flawed steel. It tempers it. The lumen strips flickered once as Godolkin delivered the sentence. You will undertake pilgrimage to Spukari. The words settled like ash. Spukari, the land of shadows. A dead expanse within Medusa's northern reaches where ancient ruins choke the horizon and electrostatic storms never cease. It is said that the shadows there do not behave as light dictates. that constructs older than the Imperium walk beneath fractured towers, that the ground remembers those who trespass. Few who walk into Spukari return unchanged. Fewer return at all. You will go unarmed, Godolkin continued. No blade, no bolter, no auxiliary systems beyond those integral to your form. You will walk as flesh walks. The statement carried weight. An Astartes without weapons on Medusa was not merely vulnerable, he was honest. You will recover a shard of Asianoth. Even Ervok felt the subtle shift in the chamber at that name. Asianoth, the metal serpent Ferrus Manus dragged into the fire. It was in its molten death that his hands were clad in living silver. The tale says the Gorgon broke the mountains as it fell, burying the creature's carcass beneath Spukari's shadowed wastes. What remains lay there still, ancient, metallic, and unyielding. Return with a shard of its scales, Godolkin finished, and you will have proven your iron. And if I do not, Ervok asked, then Medusa will have judged you sufficient. There was no threat in the words, no malice, only fact. Ancient Godolkin's optics burned brighter. You executed a servant of Mars. Yes. You withheld the truth of your reasoning. Yes. Do you consider this weakness? A fraction of a second passed before Ervok answered, yes. The Dreadnought's reactor gave a low, approving growl. Then you will walk until you know whether it is weakness or strength born incorrectly. The Council spoke as one. Iron sharpens iron. Ervok bowed his head. I will walk. Chapter 2. The Sentence. The gates of the Crawler Fortress ground open behind him. They did not close quickly. Clan Vergan watched. Ervok stepped onto the ash plains without bolter, without blade, without shield. No combat harness, no auxiliary servo skulls, no Auspex relay. The only machine he bore was that which had replaced his lost flesh. The wind struck him immediately. Medusa did not whisper. It scraped. Iron-rich ash scoured his armor. Static storms rolled across the horizon in jagged pulses of pale lightning. In the distance, the broken silhouettes of Spukari's mountains cut into the sky like shattered teeth. He had walked into war zones less hostile. But this was different. On campaign, a weapon completed him. A bolter was certainty. A blade was argument. Even silence had structure when backed by firepower. Now there was only exposure. His autosenses registered fluctuations in pressure and particulate density. His augmetics compensated automatically. Yet he felt it. Not vulnerability, absence. The wind howled across the plain, and for a moment, only a moment, he remembered being small, a boy of Medusa. The storms had seemed endless then. He had hidden behind a ridge of scrap metal and basalt while lightning split the sky in screaming forks. He had feared the dark between flashes. His father had found him there, not with comfort, with correction. Storms do not kill the strong, the man had said, gripping his shoulder hard enough to bruise. But concealed weakness spreads. It rots a clan from within. The boy had said nothing. His father had forced his chin upward. If you fear, you speak it. If you err, you claim it. What is hidden grows. The next storm, the boy had stood in the open. He had trembled, but he had not hidden. The memory dissolved beneath the present wind. Ervok walked. Now he feared nothing. Not the storm, not the dark, not the long miles to Spukari. His foot sank into iron dust. He adjusted his gait. Each step carried weight disproportionate to mass. Without war gear, each stride felt deliberate, measured, honest. In the far distance, lightning illuminated the broken horizon where Asianoth lay entombed beneath stone and shadow, the metal serpent that had once wrapped itself around a Primarch and been drowned in fire. Only a handful had returned from that place. Most had been strong of body. The body can endure. Ervok's stride did not falter as the first fingers of Spukari's stormfront reached toward him. The question was not flesh, it was iron of another kind. Can the mind? Chapter 3, Old Treaties. The ruins had not been ruins, they had been sleeping. Capraxis Delta was a dead world, radiation scorched, tectonically unstable and valuable only because auger scans suggested buried archaeotech beneath its fractured crust. The Adeptus Mechanicus had petitioned the Iron Hands for recovery support. Clan Vergan had answered. The Magos Dominus in charge identified himself as Hester Val 9. His flesh was minimal, His mechadendrites were immaculate. His voice carried the flat cadence of Binharic's superiority, thinly veiled in diplomacy. Primary objective: retrieval of xenotech power matrices for study and sanctification. The word sanctification had lingered. The vault doors had opened without warning. The first exchange of fire was efficient. Bolter rounds detonated metallic skulls. Plasma reduced advancing constructs to molten ruin. Vergun advanced in shield-locked formation, precise and disciplined. The Magos observed. Engage and hold, Val 9 transmitted. Power signatures increasing. Deeper structures detected. Probability of significant technological acquisition has risen to 73%. Casualty projection? Ervok had demanded. A pause. Acceptable. The tomb complex shifted. Scarab swarms poured from fissures in the walls. Gas fire flayed ceramite into smoking ruin. One battle brother fell when his leg was stripped to bone in a heartbeat. Another was dragged into darkness by mechanical limbs that phased through solid matter. Vergun tightened formation. Objective secured, Ervok voxed minutes later. Primary data core recovered. Withdraw to extraction. Magos Val 9 did not comply. Negative. Deeper vault signatures indicate command nexus. Potentially intact cognition crypt. Such a discovery would elevate my standing for centuries. Your objective was recovery. It has evolved. The Magos said, his expression tightening with something approaching anticipation. Another battle brother fell. The Magos advanced toward a descending aperture in the floor. Mechadendrites extended, data tethers streaming into alien interfaces. Continue engagement, Val 9 commanded. Astartes' durability exceeds projections. Ervok watched Brother Cordain take a Gauss beam through the helm. Watched the green flare consume the warrior's faceplate from within. The Necron phalanx reformed with machine precision. New constructs phased into existence from walls and floor alike. Extraction, Ervok ordered again. Denied. Magos Dominus Val 9 intoned, Vox amplifiers smoothing his tone into something almost patient. You will maintain perimeter integrity while I secure the cognition crypt. Extraction window closing, Ervok replied. Objective fulfilled, we withdraw. Compliance is not optional. Came the reply from Vial 9. Gauss fire tore another line through the shield wall. Brother Halvek staggered as emerald light stripped plating from his shoulder. The Magos continued, voice now threaded with Binharic subharmonics. Be advised, failure to support Mechanicus reclamation efforts will be logged. I will submit a formal censure to Mars. Your chapter's access to Forge World support, munitions resupply, and armor sanctification rights will be reviewed. Another impact. Another brother down. The 10th does not take kindly to threats, Ervok said flat, putting 2 bolter rounds through the skull of a Necron warrior. I would report reality, Val 9 corrected. The Treaty of Olympus binds us. Non-compliance will have consequences. The vault trembled. Warning sigils cascaded across Ervok's helm display. Structural collapse imminent. Necron forms phased through the far wall, ranks assembling in silent green precision. Final order, Ervok said. Withdraw. The Magos did not move. If Clan Vergun abandons this discovery, I will ensure Mars remembers. Consider carefully, Sergeant. Your chapter's future standing may hinge on this moment. Ervok stepped forward. Stand down, Magos. The treaty also binds you to us. We serve Mars and the retrieval of knowledge. We do not spend our lives for personal glory. You will obey. The Magos said, mechadendrites shuddering as Binharic tension spiked. There was no anger in him, no surge of defiance, only calculation. If he complied, more of his chapter would be expended without purpose. If he refused, Mars would tighten its grip. If he acted, the arithmetic resolved. He raised his bolt pistol. The shot was singular, clean. The Magos Dominus fell, mechadendrites lashing once as Binharic static screamed into nothing. Ervok caught the data core before it struck the floor. Extraction. Now. Vergun withdrew in disciplined retreat as the vault began to implode, sealing Necron constructs and Mechanicus ambition alike beneath collapsing strata. Chapter 4, Hunger on the Ash Plains. The ash did not care that he was Astartes. It shifted beneath his boots the same as it would beneath any mortal man. Ervok crouched low against a basalt outcrop, auto-senses dimmed to reduce glare from the static-choked horizon. The wind carried particulate iron and the faint tremor of something moving beneath the crust. He did not carry a bolter. He did not require one. The creature surfaced in a burst of dust, a Thranox. Native to Medusa's wastes, six-limbed, blind and armored in layered mineral plating. It hunted by vibration, so did he. Ervok did not charge. He waited. When it struck, he moved with mechanical precision, one arm locking around the primary limb joint, the other driving mechanical fingers into the seam beneath its thoracic plates. Ceramite ground against chitin. Servos whined. The creature thrashed, claws scoring sparks from his pauldrons. He tightened. The joint tore free. The beast convulsed once, then stilled. Silence returned to the ash plain. He knelt beside the carcass and opened it with deliberate force. Steam rose into the cold air. The scent was metallic, bitter. He ate. Raw muscle tore easily beneath transhuman teeth. His omophagea filtered toxins automatically. His secondary organs conserved what a mortal body would waste. An Astartes required little to endure, an iron hand even less, far less than he had as a child. He remembered hunger then, the gnawing kind. The kind that bent thought inward and made storms feel larger than they were. He had scavenged scrap creatures half this size and fought other boys for marrow. Now he consumed only what was necessary. Efficiency. He wiped mineral-thick blood from his gauntlet and rose. Medusa did not bow to his enhancements. The wind still cut. The ash still blinded. The storms still rolled without regard for rank or gene lineage. Without war gear, the difference between him and the world narrowed. Stripped of bolter, blade, and most of his armor, what remained? Body, mind, choice. He began walking again toward the distant shadows of Spokari. The memory returned unbidden. The vault, the green light, the Mago's voice, "You will obey." He had executed a servant of Mars. The thought did not trouble him, the reason did. More of his chapter would be wasted on false calculus, that was fact. The Magos had threatened the Iron Hands. Threatened Vergan, threatened the treaty, leveraged politics over lives. That was fact. But beneath the arithmetic there had been something else, a tightening in his chest, a flash of heat when the word obey had been spoken as command rather than request. He flexed his augmetic hand. Had he acted from duty or from defiance, justice or pride? The Iron Hands did not tolerate weakness, but pride concealed itself well. It wore the armor of righteousness. It spoke in the language of logic. He replayed the moment of the shot. Measured breath, stable aim, no hesitation, only clarity. The ash storm thickened ahead, the first true boundary of Spokari's reach. Lightning flickered within it, illuminating broken mountain silhouettes in stark pulses. His body would endure this pilgrimage. It had endured worse. The question was not endurance, it was corrosion. If pride had guided his hand, then the flaw was internal, hidden. And what is hidden spreads. The wind howled across the plain as Ervok walked toward the land of shadows. He did not quicken his pace. He did not slow. He walked as iron walks, forward. But for the first time since leaving the crawler, the silence inside him was not empty. It was questioning. Chapter 5, the first culling. There had been no ceremony. Clan trials did not announce themselves. The boys were told to walk, that was all. No supplies beyond what they could carry. No shelter assigned. No guidance. The storms would come. The ground would move. The cold would decide what resolve meant. Shelter, they had been told, is temporary. Movement is survival. If he failed the trials, Medusa would take his body and grind it into iron dust. If he succeeded, the Iron Hands would take him instead. He would be remade, reforged, lifted from the plains he knew. And he would never walk back into his father's forge, never hear his mother's voice over the wind, never sit beneath the low stone roof of their dwelling again. Success did not mean return. It meant erasure. The clan would speak his name with pride, perhaps, but they would speak it as something no longer theirs. Ervok remembered the sky that day, bruised purple with gathering static. The air tasted of iron filings. He walked with 6 others, none speaking. Speech wasted moisture. They found partial cover beneath the ribcage of a fallen crawler half buried in ash. Its ancient hull still bore the scars of forgotten wars. For a time, the wind lessened. One boy suggested they remain there until the storm passed. No one agreed, no one argued. They simply stayed. The tremor came without warning. Not violently, just enough. Medusa did not always kill with spectacle. Sometimes it shifted. The fissure opened without warning beneath the smallest of them, a boy named Tarev. One moment he stood with them. The next the earth split, and he was gone, swallowed into sudden darkness. His hands clawed at the edge for less than a second before stone and debris cascaded down after him. The ground sealed halfway. Silence returned. No one moved to the edge. No one called his name. They stared at the crack in the earth. The wind began to rise again. After a long moment, Ervok turned and began walking. The others followed. There was no vote, no command. Medusa had chosen. Hunger came on the second day. They brought down a scavenger beast no larger than a feral hound, cornering it between scrap mounds and shattered basalt. It fought harder than its size warranted. One of the boys lost 2 fingers before it died. They tore into it with bare hands. The meat tasted metallic, bitter, wrong. Ervok forced it down without expression. It did not satisfy, it sustained. Eating was not relief, it was maintenance. That night, beneath lightning that split the sky into jagged fractures of white, Ervok understood something without being told. Shelter collapses, ground opens, meat nourishes but does not comfort. Medusa does not nurture, it refines by subtraction. The weak fails and the hesitant is punished. The planet does not protect, it selects. Chapter 6, Among Ruins That Watch. The ash changed first, finer, darker. It clung to the joints of his armor and settled in the recesses of his augmetics as though reluctant to let him pass. The wind no longer moved in violent bursts. It circled instead, low and deliberate, drawing slow arcs between broken structures that rose from the plain like the ribs of something long dead. He had reached the outskirts of the land of shadows. The ruins did not stand in neat decay. They leaned, they twisted. Columns of alloy half melted into basalt, fractured spans suspended at impossible angles. The geometry beneath the collapse was wrong, too precise to be natural, too ancient to be imperial. It did not feel abandoned, it felt occupied. He moved forward without haste, each step placed with care, weight distributed, senses narrowed. Static crawled across his internal displays, interference rising and falling without pattern. His auto-senses compensated, recalibrated, failed to find source. Then came the sensation. Subtle, persistent. He was being watched, not by optics, not by Auspec's signature, by absence, by pressure against the edge of perception, like the moment before a predator breaks cover. The ruins seemed to lean inward as he passed, angles tightening, shadows thickening where no storm cloud dimmed the light. He did not turn his head sharply, he did not break stride. Predators announce fear, not awareness. But the thought formed with unwelcome clarity. He might not be the only predator here. On Medusa, there was always something higher in the chain. Larger, more patient. A creature that watched the watcher. He adjusted his rote, stepping through a collapsed archway and into the carcass of a structure long stripped by wind and time. Inside, the air was still. The floor was layered with debris, fractured plating, lengths of corroded cabling, shards of alloy that retained an edge even after centuries of erosion. He was no tech marine, but every child of Medusa learns early that survival belongs to those who shape the world before it shapes them. He selected a length of hardened rod, tested its balance, then snapped it clean against a stone edge. The break left a jagged spear point. Efficient. Direct. He wrapped the base with torn cabling stripped from the wall, binding it tight around his gauntlet for retention. Next came a slab of alloy, curved and dense, small enough to carry but thick enough to deflect. Not a shield, a barrier. Improvised, functional. He moved without ritual, without prayer. Machine spirits would not dwell in scrap like this, only intent mattered. As he worked, the sensation intensified, watching. The ash beyond the broken wall shifted though the wind had died. A shadow elongated across the threshold, then shortened, though no lightning split the sky. Who hunts who? The question did not unsettle him. It focused him. He rose slowly, spear of scavenged iron resting along his forearm, alloy slab gripped in his offhand. Primitive tools, crude by Astartes measure, sufficient. He stepped back into the open ruin. Silence pressed down. Even the storm seemed to hold breath. He stood in the shadow of broken architecture and felt the weight of something unseen adjusting its stance beyond sightline, testing him as he tested it. He had entered Spukari unarmed. Now he was not. He lowered his center of gravity slightly, posture shifting from pilgrim to predator. Whatever moved in the shadows would not find him unready. Let it come. Chapter 7. Trials Beyond Flesh. He had left his clan years before, taken during his first trial when the warriors of the Iron Hands descended without warning. He had been lifted from Medusa's plains in the belly of a gunship, ash still clinging to his skin, and he had not seen his family since. That severance had been final. There were no returns, only advancement or disposal. Since then, he had lived among iron. Training cages, surgical slabs, hypnodoctrine, trials layered upon trials, each one designed to remove something unnecessary. Fear, hesitation, attachment, illusion. This was his third. Or perhaps his fourth. They did not number them for the aspirants. He was older now, taller, scarred from prior failures that had not killed him. Others who had begun beside him were gone. Some claimed by surgery, some by the wastes, some by constructs that did not differentiate between flesh and worthiness. On the morning of this trial, no announcement was made. An Iron Hand simply entered the holding chamber and looked at him. That was enough. Ervok rose. He was given a data slate with map markings for extraction while being transported across Medusa's surface. The Thunderhawk's hold was silent, save for engine thrum and the slow mechanical respiration of the warriors who observed him without expression. One of the iron-clad warriors stood without haste, the movement heavy and deliberate. He removed the data slate from Ervok's grasp, servo fingers closing around it with quiet finality. "Endure," he said. They did not inspire him. They measured him. When they left him in the wastes, they took nothing from him, because nothing there had ever been his. The gunship lifted as the ash swallowed the sound. Ervok stood alone once more on the world that had birthed him and would gladly reclaim him. This was not selection, it was refinement. He began to walk. The trial was not a path, it was exposure. No guidance, no weapons beyond what they could fashion. Days of wandering through terrain that shifted underfoot, storms that flayed skin raw, cold that sank into marrow. Medusa did not grow quieter as one matured, it grew less forgiving. He passed corpses before the first day ended. An aspirant half buried in ash, armor plates issued for the trial cracked open, face stripped by scavengers. No one paused. A fallen tech scavenger farther on, his augmetic spine ripped out for parts. Ancient constructs lay scattered in broken pieces, metallic carcasses from wars no one living remembered. He took what functioned. A length of cabling, a blade chipped but intact, a targeting lens from a shattered helm. Respect was irrelevant. The dead did not require it. Function was everything. On the third day, he found the construct. It rose from beneath the dust in silence, alloy limbs unfolding with mechanical grace. Not Necron, not Imperial. Something older. Its surface was etched with patterns that seemed to move when viewed too long. It did not hesitate. Neither did he. The fight was brief. It removed his left hand at the wrist before he understood its reach. A clean strike. Blood sprayed across ash and metal alike. He felt shock first, then clarity. Pain followed, bright and pure. He closed distance instead of retreating. The construct drove a blade through his cheek, severing his left eye. Vision narrowed to one side, depth perception skewed, balance altered. He adjusted. Pain is data. The body fails. Resolve must not. He tore the blade free with his remaining hand and drove it into the seam beneath the construct's thorax. Once, twice, again. It collapsed in sections, falling apart as if surrendering to entropy. He stood over it, blood pooling at his boots, breathing measured. He sealed the wound with heated metal scavenged from its carcass, cauterizing flesh without ceremony. The smell was sharp, familiar. He did not look away. Later he passed another aspirant, strong, larger than him, furious. The boy charged a construct in open ground, roaring defiance as lightning split the sky. He fought with rage and speed and strength. He died quickly. Ervok watched from distance. Rage exposes, restraint preserves. A smaller aspirant survived the same storm by sheltering behind fractured plating, waiting, conserving energy, striking only when necessary. Weak in size, strong in control. He lived. By the time Ervok reached the extraction point, he was lighter. One hand gone, one eye gone, 2 fingers missing from the remaining hand, torn away during another engagement he barely remembered. His body had failed him repeatedly, but he walked. The apothecaries did not praise him, they measured him. He remembered lying on cold steel as his gene seed was assessed, hearing the name of Ferrus Manus spoken not with reverence but expectation. Ferrus Manus did not teach rage, he taught control. Rage is easy, it burns fast, it blinds. Control endures. Ervok understood then that becoming Iron Hand was not about strength. Strength was common. Medusa forged strong bodies every generation. Control was rare, he had lost flesh, he had not lost himself. That was why he was chosen. The memory faded. Ervok flexed his augmetic hand, the replacement for the one taken long ago. The metal responded instantly, obedient, precise. The body fails, it can be replaced. Resolve must not. Chapter 8, The Weight of Silence. The land of shadows stretched in broken plains of blackened glass and metallic dunes, wind scraping across them in a constant, low scream. The sky above churned in slow tectonic spirals of ash and stormlight, never fully dark, never fully bright. Jagged silhouettes of half-buried engines and ancient war constructs jutted from the earth like the ribs of something too large to rot. Nothing decayed here, it simply waited. Ervok walked without haste. The ground was a mosaic of fused sand and iron splinters. Each step rang faintly through his augmetics. The air tasted of oxidized metal. In the distance, the land rose unnaturally, not in the slow heave of tectonic birth, but in jagged upheaval, as if the mountains themselves had been seized and hurled down in violence. Ranges lay broken atop one another, fused into a blackened mass of collapsed stone and metal-veined rock. This was no natural formation. Here was the tomb of the great silver worm. He had armed himself from the fallen. A snapped blade haft-bound along his forearm with cable torn from a wrecked servitor. A strip of hull plate hammered and wired into a crude buckler magnetized against his remaining palm. A length of sharpened rebar mounted beneath his wrist where fingers had once been. Inelegant, functional, Medusan. Each movement pulled at damaged servos. He had not fully repaired himself after the last encounter. That was acceptable. Pain was calibration. The chapter had not sent him here to die. If they had wished him dead, there were faster means. He had been sent to atone, to be tempered. He had already failed once. Not in execution, but in concealment. If weakness remained in him, this place would find it. The wind did not relent. It scraped across in long metallic sighs, worrying at wreckage, whispering through split hulls and hollow constructs. Ervok strode on, the wind clawing at him, glass crunching beneath iron-shod tread. His pace did not falter. Each step was measured, deliberate, not hurried, not hesitant. He reflected as he walked. Reflection was not indulgence, it was calibration. For 10 millennia, the Iron Hands had stood beside Mars. The Mechanicus armed them with the finest war gear the Imperium could forge. Plasma calibrated to impossible tolerances. Augmetics worthy of a Primarch's gene sons. Engines that answered to their touch as if eager. No chapter was better provisioned. None more intimately bound to the priesthood of the machine god. Alliance, mutual reverence, mutual utility. But the Mechanicus was not singular. It was not a unified will. It was a cathedral of 1,000 competing doctrines, forge worlds, magi, and hidden schisms. Some revered the Astartes as avatars of the Omnissiah's wrath. Others saw them as weapons, assets, deployable, replaceable. Not all of Mars thought that way. He knew this. To believe otherwise would be as foolish as claiming all Iron Hands despised flesh equally. The Mechanicus was vast. It contained zealots, visionaries, archivists, and tyrants. It contained faith and ambition in equal measure. The Iron Hands were not blind to that complexity. They had already removed one voice of Mars from within their own councils. Iron Father Verox had dragged the mangled remains of Nico Palpus, the chapter's appointed liaison to the priesthood, before the Iron Council itself. Not in secrecy, not quietly. The corpse had been laid upon the cold floor as evidence. Debate had followed. thorough, surgical. The Treaty of Olympus had been dissected line by line, oaths examined, loopholes identified, weaknesses cauterized. The alliance endured, but it endured because it was useful. The Iron Hands preached that flesh was weakness. They replaced it without hesitation. They spoke of logic, of function, of strength through iron. Yet loyalty was not forged from iron alone. It could not be machined, nor sanctified in oil and prayer. Loyalty required trust, and trust required the certainty that one was not merely a component to be expended when expedient. The Magos had not acted for Mars, not truly. Mars would have endured delay. Mars would have endured caution. Mars measured in millennia. The Magos had measured in accolades, in prestige, in the quiet elevation that follows singular discovery. He had seen an opportunity to bind Archaeotech to his own name. The risk to Astartes' lives had been a variable, acceptable in pursuit of personal ascension. Ervok had seen brothers ground down to feed that ambition. The difference had been resolved in the span of a single bolt round. Ervok's stride shortened as he ascended the slope of blackened debris, boots grinding against slag and splintered metal. He did not labor, he adjusted. At the crest he paused. The wind moved across without mercy, as it always did, abrasive, relentless, indifferent. Medusa's storms were fickle things, capable of turning on themselves within a heartbeat. This was not that. The air shifted, not in direction, in tension. The constant scream of grit against iron dulled for a fraction of a second as if drawn inward. Pressure gathered beneath the noise, subtle, coiling, wrong. Below, in the skeletal remains of a toppled engine thing, something moved against the grain of the storm. Not the erratic tumble of debris, deliberate. A shape unfolded itself from shadow, elongated limbs of grafted iron and pallid flesh stretched taut over cable muscle. Optic lenses flickered dull red beneath a skull plated in scavenged metal. Its posture was wrong, spine arched too far, head tilted in mechanical assessment. It had been watching him. The cyber ghoul stepped fully into view, talons carving lines into the glass. No roar, no mindless charge, calculation. Ervok lowered his center of gravity. The crude buckler locked into place with a magnetic thud. The rebar blade angled forward. The wind died for half a heartbeat. Two predators regarded one another across the broken plain. Then the ghoul began to move. Chapter 9, within the killing arc. Ervok did not charge. He knew at once he could not overpower it. The creature was built for this terrain. Light where he was heavy, elastic where he was reinforced. Its talons scored black glass as it advanced, leaving shallow furrows in the fused earth. It moved first, fast. The impact rang through him like a struck anvil. His crude buckler shattered under the first blow, hull plate peeling away in a shriek of tearing metal. A talon carved along his flank, splitting ceramite, biting into augmetic rib. Warning runes flared and died. He did not attempt to match it for speed, he endured. The ghoul pressed him, driving him downslope in a cascade of slag and broken scrap. Each strike calculated, each feint precise. This was no feral beast. It hunted with pattern recognition, probing for structural weakness. It found many. His rebar blade snapped at the haft. A second blow tore the sharpened length from his wrist mount. Hydraulic fluid misted into the storm air. His vision flickered as a secondary optic failed. He anchored. An iron hand could absorb punishment that would pulp lesser Astartes. Reinforced bone, redundant systems, pain dampeners. The will to remain upright long after the body petitioned for collapse. He took a grim satisfaction in that knowledge as another blow hammered him to one knee. Let it spend itself. Let it calculate. Let it believe him near termination. The ghoul lunged to finish. Ervok moved then. Not faster. Closer. He seized one elongated limb and dragged the creature inward, into the space where its reach meant nothing. Servo strength met cable muscle. Metal ground against metal. Its talons punched through his shoulder, locking them together in ruin. He drove the jagged spine of his broken forearm mount up beneath its plated jaw. Once. Twice. On the third impact, something gave. A wet crack beneath iron. The optic lenses dimmed. The creature convulsed, spasmed, then sagged against him, dead weight dragging him backward into the black glass. For several seconds he did not move. Wind howled over them both. When he pushed the carcass aside, more of his armor came with it. His left arm hung at an unnatural angle. Internal diagnostics flickered with cascading failures. Blood and oil ran together down his greaves. If he returned, he would be remade. He rose slowly, leaving fragments of himself in the glass. Ahead, beyond the wreckage and storm-torn dunes, the land fell away into a vast rupture. A chasm split open through layered rock and fused mountain. Not erosion, not tectonic drift, violence. Here the Gorgon had broken Medusa's spine and hurled its own peaks down into the wound. Here the great silver worm had been buried beneath a cairn of shattered ranges. Ervok stepped toward the edge, wind dragging at his ruined armor, pain singing through every augmetic junction. This was not a battle. This was judgment. Chapter 10, The Broken Spine. It took days. The chasm where the mountains had been cast down was not a clean wound, but a layered tomb. Stone crushed into metal, metal fused into glass. Ancient constructs collapsed and entombed beneath Ferrus Manus's wrath. Ervok descended alone into its throat. He dug, not like a laborer, like a warrior dismantling an enemy position. Collapsed struts were levered aside, fused plates were pried loose with the remnants of his forearm mount. He tunneled through debris fields where dead engines still twitched with residual charge. Lesser constructs stirred in the dark, half-formed things of claw and cable. He destroyed them without ceremony, not quickly, not cleanly. His body was already compromised from the Guardian. Each movement tore something further. Each strike cost him structure. He repaired what he could with torn wiring and stripped plating from the fallen. Inelegant solutions. Temporary. Function was everything. At last he reached it. A curve of metal too smooth to be natural, too seamless to be forged. It emerged from crushed strata like a frozen wave. Silver, but not truly silver. It drank the lumen light. It rejected corrosion. It had not dulled in 10,000 years beneath mountain and ruin. He placed his palm against the exposed length, cold, unyielding, permanent. He worked at the edge of what must once have been the creature's tail, levering apart the fused rock that still clung to it. The metal resisted him, not actively, not with will, but with indifference. He wedged a fractured support beam into a natural seam and forced his weight against it. Servos screamed. Damaged pistons ground. His shoulder joint tore further from its housing. The shard broke free with a sound like a bell struck beneath the earth. A long sliver of unnatural silver, taller than a man. Its edge was not sharp in the conventional sense. It simply ended with absolute definition. It reflected him as he stood before it. Not clearly. Distorted. He saw a figure held together by wire and stubbornness. One optic dark, armor split, blood and oil drying in layered stains. This pilgrimage had never been about retrieving relic metal. It had been about excising that flaw. Weakness must be removed. He climbed from the chasm slowly, one-handed, hauling himself up through broken strata and splintered metal. The shard rode across his back, secured with stripped cable and torn plating, its weight dragging at what remained of his shoulder assembly. Each pull sent fresh fractures through damaged augmetics. He did not rush. At the lip of the wound, he rose into the storm once more. The land of shadows stretched out before him. Glass plains, shattered engines, the cairn of mountains behind. For a moment, nothing moved but wind. Then the silence changed. Not the earth. The air. The wind slipped around the wreckage differently, snagging on forms that had not been there a moment before. Shadows lengthened where no structure stood. The stormlight caught on metal that had been carefully angled away from sight. They had been watching, waiting. Across the plain, debris shifted, not rising but withdrawing. Sheets of hull plate that had lain at careful angles slid aside. Camouflage netting woven from cable and sinew peeled back. The carcass of a shattered engine split open along a seam that was no fracture at all. Shapes unfolded from concealment. Not one, many. Long-limbed figures dropping soundlessly from the skeletal frames of ancient constructs. Squatter abominations stepping out from behind slag heaps and broken armor columns. Others detaching themselves from vertical surfaces where they had clung motionless, iron talons biting deep into metal. Optics flared to life one by one across the ruins. Red, pale amber, sickly white, a constellation igniting in deliberate sequence. There was intelligence there. Now they advanced, not charging, not howling, but closing in measured arcs, cutting off retreat, herding him from all sides of the shattered plain. Ervok stepped clear of the chasm edge and turned slowly, tracking their approach. He rolled his ruined shoulder once, ignoring the cascade of failure runes flaring through his vision. He had what he came for. Let them come. Chapter 11. Structural Integrity. They found him 3 days beyond the outer ash belts. A Vergan thunderhawk cut through the storm front without heraldry, without proclamation. It did not circle, it did not signal. It descended. Ervok did not look up as it approached. He continued walking across the wastes, one step at a time, shard secured against his ruined chest plating. His left arm was little more than torn armor and exposed cabling. One optic was dark. Hydraulic seepage marked his path in a thin, intermittent line. He did not stumble. When the ramp lowered, he turned and mounted it without assistance. Inside, the warriors of Clan Vergan regarded him in silence. No exclamations, no questions. They saw the damage, they saw the shard. That was sufficient. The Iron Council chamber was as he had left it. Iron pillars, dim lumen strips, the air carrying the scent of oil and cold stone. Ancient Godolkin loomed at the chamber's center, a mass of armored ceramite and adamantine, bionics no longer augmentations but totality. His form was a walking reliquary of war, scarred and reforged across centuries. Ervok crossed the chamber and knelt. Metal rang softly as he placed the shard of Azirnoth before the council. It was larger than a man's torso, silver-black, veined with dead luminescence. "I have returned," he said. The words were not triumphant. They were factual. Silence settled, thick and deliberate. Godolkin stepped forward. "You were not sent to die," the ancient Iron Father said. It was not a question. "No," Ervok replied. "You were not sent for punishment." "No." Godolkin's focus did not alter. "Do you understand why you were sent?" The chamber did not breathe. Ervok did not lift his head. "I executed the Magos to preserve the chapter," he said. "His ambition endangered our warriors and the treaty with Mars. A murmur of servo motors. Nothing more. I concealed elements of that act," he continued. "I removed context. I shaped the report to prevent fracture." He did not speak of pride. He did not speak of satisfaction. He did not need to. "A lie," Godolkin said. "A corrosion," Ervok answered. The word did not echo. It settled. "The treaty must hold," Ervok said. "Iron will break if made impure. If weakness remained within me, in mind or will, it would stain every command I gave." The logic was clean. "You were sent to be cleansed," Godolkin said. "Yes. And to determine whether the corrosion could be purged." A long pause. "And is it?" Ervok finally raised his remaining optic. "Yes." He did not elaborate. He had endured. He had torn a shard from the grave of Azirnoth. The weakness that remained had been cut and stripped away. No one asked what he saw in the land of shadows. No one asked what he fought. No one asked how many things moved beneath the glass. Such details were irrelevant. He had returned with the shard. He had returned intact in purpose. That was the measure. The red glow within the dreadnought's vision slit, dimmed fractionally, then steadied. "You will be remade," Godolkin said. "You will relinquish further flesh, yes. You will resume command. Vergan has invested a great deal in you. You are calculated for higher responsibility." A single beat of silence. "Sergeant." Servitors would rebuild him, replace what was lost, improve what had failed. His broken arm would return as something stronger. His damaged optic would be replaced with upgraded augments. Flesh would yield further to iron. But that was not the true reforging. Ervok bowed his head. He had not been exiled, he had not been absolved, he had been tempered.